for everyday people who are listening to this and want to figure out a way to improve their vision or improve their perception of the world, what are some daily things or some everyday things that people can do to expand their vision, expand their acuity? And you even actually, you spoke about you worked with a SEAL, I believe, a Navy SEAL and a pilot to improve their vision with some rigorous, grueling therapy work where they did 5 hours a day of therapy, and they actually improved their vision from like very poor vision to 20/20 in the matter of a week.
Yeah. Okay. If we're talking about seeing smaller, we're probably talking about somebody who's nearsighted, meaning when you take your glasses off, you can't see far away. Okay. You might be able to see just fine if you move something real close to you, but anything that's further away, it's hard to see. So with that, what you would do is you'd take your glasses off and you would get as far from some print as you can barely see it. You'd close your eyes, you'd picture the print, and then you'd pop your eyes wide open, just like you're throwing your eyes across the room. And oftentimes the print will start to clear up a bit, and then it disappears again. Okay? Now, when I say it clears up, it actually clears up. It actually starts to look smaller and blacker. So you'd have to have print that's big enough, like if you had Liquid Death here.
Yeah.
Okay? If it was that size print and you got that right at the edge of where you can barely see it, if you closed your eyes and then popped them wide open, it might come into focus for a second. If it did, then that's a way to learn to see smaller. You just keep practicing that.
And is this kind of what you did with the Navy SEAL and the pilot?
That was one of the big ones. They call it deep winks.
Deep winks.
But it's just closing your eyes and then popping them wide open. And it helps if you picture in your mind what you're going to see.
Okay, so you read the words, imagine what they say.
Yeah, you could get up close and look at it in detail.
Yeah.
Move it out further, picture that in your mind, pop those eyes wide open, and then boom, see if it'd come in a second. If it'll come in a second and then it disappears, then by working that more, you start to learn how to keep it in. And then when you move your eyes, it blurs. So eventually you learn how to keep it in even though you're moving your eyes and things are moving. Now and that's in that book. As far as there's a whole little section in there of exactly how to do that exercise.
Right.
But that's more for the people that would like to see with weaker glasses. And then you go to your optometrist and you ask, could I have a pair of glasses that are 4 clicks too weak for me? And you start working in that.
Okay, so essentially you can kind of like work your way down in power with your glasses.
Power to where you get so you can see. Now, if you're very nearsighted, you're not going to just take your glasses off and see much.
Right.
If you can see to read without your glasses, in other words, if you could read at normal distance, let's say you can read at 16 to 20 inches without glasses on, you probably can learn to see pretty well in the distance. Okay. If you have to move your book up to where it's 10 inches in front of your nose, then you probably can't learn to see in the distance without glasses.
Right.
So if you're a little nearsighted, in other words, you can become less and less dependent on glasses. On the other hand, if you have Coke bottles that are quite thick, you might be able to learn how to see with glasses that are less far. Now, there are lots of books on the market on that type of thing.
Okay.
The most famous one is by Bates. Better Eyesight Without Glasses, I think it was called.
And he's famous for the Bates method.
The Bates method. So he had a whole bunch of exercises. The deep winks I mentioned, they're in the book that we've been talking about. The Shape of the Sky, there's a section in here on that. Now, when it comes to seeing three-dimensional, though, now you want to start looking at the space in between things. Okay? So let's say I have Liquid Death here, and I have my hand here. Well, how much space is here? So if instead of looking at Liquid Death or looking at my hand, I instead look at the space between them, now I'm starting to think about that. If I'm in the forest and there are 2 trees, Um, and I start to see both at once. Look at one, see the other one. Then there's more space. I could look and see if I can see 3 trees at the same time.
Right.
So I could open up my side and see 3 different trees at once, or 4 or 5, so that I start to see a bigger area at the same time. If there are 2 trees and they look like they're 3 or 4 feet apart, as I walk towards them, they get further and further apart. They look like they're spreading out.
Right.
If I keep thinking about both trees simultaneously, then I'm opening up that side vision. If I am looking at something and I think about how much space do I see between me and it, sometimes that will open up your bigger space area.
And so this is almost the same. It seems like it's something that you have to deliberately do, like a exercise, similar to
you just have to do it.
Similar
Yes.
to the deep winks. It seems is like something you have to constantly do for a long period of time every day until. Is it something that eventually can become automatic to somebody?
Yeah. Because, and that has to do with your posture as well. If you look at my posture, I'm a typical nearsighted person, and you'll notice my head is too far forward. Okay?
Right.
Okay. So nearsighted people typically kind of look like this. Their head starts to go like they're trying to see far
Right.
away. Okay. So if I instead straighten up, stretch the top of my head to the ceiling, think about getting my ears so they're back over my shoulders, then the world is more likely to open up.
Really?
Because we said that your body was part of your seeing. So your posture can affect things. So if you learn how to kind of stretch upward, and oftentimes you get so the air is easier to see.
The air is easier to see.
Yeah.
That's fast. That's another thing I see with a lot of gamers, video gamers. A lot of them are very hunched over.
Yeah.
They have
Yeah.
that, like hunchback.
Yeah. And so when your posture goes normal, oftentimes your vision goes back in the correct direction to where you're starting to see more like you're looking at things.
Oh.
You get the feeling like you and I are kind of together somehow.
Right.
In other words, when I know where things are compared to me, I'm seeing them as if they relate to me. Okay? When I'm just seeing how one thing is closer than another, I'm not really thinking that I have anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm seeing the distance between me and it, now it's like, oh, that. So as you straighten up and you're out in the forest, you're walking around, you start to notice that the trees are distances from you oftentimes. Okay?
Right.
So it's something that you can play with on posture to get it more like a second nature type of thing.
Okay.
But the key on all of those eventually is to do them moving. If you can't see space when you're moving, then it's nothing that's going to stay with you at all. You'd have to be able to move. You'd have to be able to walk and see the space. You'd have to be able to kind of move your head in different ways and still see that space.